please be very careful to watch each individual dynamic. Each part has a different dynamic from the others. Why don't you take a breath before the 5-4? Yeah. Absolutely, definitely, you take one.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do so clean breath before, after the second bar before 19. Yeah.
That's right.
That pencil. Yeah. Before that 5-4, where the tune comes.
The composer only directs the trumpets to play in mutes. Let's first try it with Herrmann mutes, please. All right, 4 bars or so to see what kind of pickup we get. Let's try it now with cup mutes.
Cups.
All right, please. I really think he wanted straight mutes. I think
Ordinary straights.
Straights. The other 2 mutes, the sound is a bit exotic. I'm not certain that that's the kind of sound he would want. But let's try straight, which I think is what we'll use. Yes.
I was just wondering, this enormous climax here, what would it sound like without any mutes at all? Is it too tough to play without mutes? Is it hard? Does it take more guts out of it?
No, I think probably it's a bit easier, strangely enough.
I'd love to hear what it sounds like. Such a tearing noise.
All right, let's try it from 9. 9.
Yeah.
From 9, please.
Open. Yeah.
Open, everybody. We're doing this for John. We have a bit of a breather and then try it again.
What are the difficulties for a trumpet player, Gary?
It's that middle section, you see, it's extremely long-winded, and you've got the high note in the middle of it to wait for. And also, a great difficulty with it is the constriction of the mute. When you play with a mute on it, it's much harder blowing than it is normally. You know, the trumpet's a bit freer. And once you put a mute in, you have a certain constriction on the embouchure, so you get a bit tired there. It's a bit like, say, a singer singing into an extremely tight acoustic, say, a very tight studio with a lot of absorbent material in the... It's that kind of problem. And especially this time in the morning.
Benny, is there some literary idea behind the title, Angels?
Well, I think it has to do with some of the poetry of Blake. It says from the symphonic suite, Men and Angels, but the first and last movements were never printed.
Did you know Ruggles?
Well, I met him through Charles Ives. He was a very great friend of Charles Ives, and whenever I saw Ives and was most interested in getting Charles to discuss with me a work of his, he'd always say, "Oh, why don't you play something of Carl instead?" And Ives had greatest of admiration for Ruggles, mostly because he could spend so much time perfecting one little piece. Of course, Ruggles only wrote about half a dozen pieces.
But was Ruggles like Ives? Was he rich and could afford to
No,
take his time?
he was supported for many years by Ives.
By Ives?
By Ives, yes.
Really? I didn't know that.
He lived in Bennington, Vermont. And Ives, ran a music magazine, or rather supported it, called New Music, that used to come out. It was a quarterly, in which they printed all the works of Ruggles and works of composers who are not known today, like Dane Rudyard, and also some of the works of Schoenberg, the big piano clavier that was first printed by New Music. And it was with the greatest of effort that anyone could get Ives to allow a piece of his to be printed in New Music.
I remember that this piece caused an enormous sensation when they did it at one of the first ISCM festivals, International Society for Contemporary Music.
In New York.
Yes. And wasn't this the time when I believe the audience started didn't like it? And Ives shouted, harangued at the audience and said, "Why can't you stand up and use your ears like men?"
Well, I believe that was so, but the part that's most interesting about Ruggles is that I think about 1940 he packed up composing entirely and became a painter.
Whereas Ives just retired altogether. Ruggles became a painter.
And his paintings, he was eminently successful with them because the critics all hailed him as an American discovery, and his paintings are now in all the major collections of American museums. As you know, also, Ruggles was the prototype for the illustrations of Moby Dick by Rockwell Kent.
I didn't know that.
And Carl Ruggles, like many of the Americans at that time, I mean, Ives was the same way. I don't think they really listened to contemporary music. They were much too engrossed in their own idea about what to do. And Ruggles used to compose in a barn in Bennington, and he used to paper the whole barn with music paper. And he would write walking around the whole building, because he said he used to like to see the composition in its complete whole.